Okay. I think we're all present.
That's it.
Yep.
Great. So, hi everyone. I think we still have a few people joining. This session is being recorded anyway, so most likely we'll send out the replay link after. So, my name is Thomas Newman, and I am the CEO of VIVA Financial Tuition, and I'm joining my colleagues Hugo Newman and Hugh Martin.
Hello.
Hi guys.
And this is, I think, is the seventh Ask Me
Yes.
Anything session that we've had. So we run these monthly, and the idea is that they're very open sessions. So, there's nothing that we prepare in advance. The idea is to just listen to students and that you raise your doubts, your Cima related doubts. And between the three of us, we try to handle them as best we can. So any questions or doubts you have related to your Cima studies, please use the chat box to put your questions to us. So we've booked out an hour for this session, as we do each month. So plenty of time to address all of your questions. So we've got the chat box, and we've got a Q&A box as well. So feel free to make use of either of those. There's also a raise hand functionality. I'm not sure if that allows users to join by video. That would be great. So feel free to try that as well. Okay, so it's always a little slow to start. How many of you are thinking of sitting the August 21 case study exams? So the OCS results came out today for the May 21 exams. Maybe some of you had results back today, or expecting results in the next 2 weeks for the MCS and SCS. Oh, sorry to hear that, Sanjita. Resitting OCS, okay. Yeah, I mean, they're tricky exams. The case studies are very, very different to the objective test, multiple choice style exams. And what we often find as well is that, even, some of our very, very good students who, they know all the theory, but they struggle a little bit sometimes with the case study papers, because it's another mindset you have to adopt, a different way of coming at problems. And of course, the fact that you're writing essay style answers, longer form answers, and obviously many students are non-native English speakers, so it makes it even trickier. So yeah, very difficult exams. Chanolo says, I'm sitting P3 objective test tomorrow, failed that a couple of times. Yeah, with the change of Cima syllabus, I think P3, had quite an overhaul, and whereas there were previously quite a few more quantitative questions, now there are very, very subjective questions. So select all that apply type questions. We keep hearing that P3 in particular has a lot of those questions. I've even heard, someone who's taught at P3 for many, many years complaining about the P3 exams that Cima's put on in recent months. He says they're getting better, but that they were too subjective. So people have said that before, that the recent P3 papers have been tricky, very, very subjective. Okay, so we have a question from Nada. Hugh, do you want to have a crack at that one?
Yeah, sure. I'm just having a look at it here. So it says, what is the best way to prepare for the theory part and how to remember it and apply it in the exam. So I suppose this is kind of possibly talking about an objective exam that's maybe half quantitative and half qualitative, something like maybe P2, that's sort of 50-50. So what's the best way to prepare for the theory part? Well, it's like, I suppose, any other part, practice makes perfect. You'll hear us say that a lot with these exams, the Cima exams, whether it's case study or objective, especially objective, if I'm being honest. Practicing questions is super important. Just getting used to the types of things that come up in the papers. We have a ton of questions on our website, and it's great just to go through those to kind of, I suppose, practice for the exam itself. In terms of the theory, I mean, sometimes it's easy to forget the theory. I think that's one of the biggest problems with it, with some of the more quantitative aspects of the syllabus throughout the whole Cima qualification. It can be, I suppose, it depends on what type of person you are, but I find it easier to retain that information. But if it's maybe a theory that is not so much related to your job, it can be difficult to remember that. But I suppose the best thing you can do is, as I said, practice questions or try to apply that theory to your workplace as much as possible. I used to do that for things like project management with E2. I didn't use that at all in my workplace, but I just tried to kind of think of, okay, how could this be used? Maybe implementing a computer system or a financial system or something like that. You know, maybe that's something the business could have done, and try to relate it to the real world as much as you can. I think that helps.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think now to clarify there, and she meant the SCS exam specifically. Yeah.
That's a good question. The SCS is a really, really tricky exam, and I suppose it's mostly theory, if not all, because the way in which the questions are posed to you, you're to give kind of a long sort of paragraph style answer, and therefore there's not many calculations. Any calculations that you'll be giving are just support of maybe recalculating gearing if the company takes on debt just to support your point. So, you know, all of the SCS is pretty much theory based. So again, going back to your question, how do you prepare for the theory part? Mock papers, try to do as much mock papers as you can, get them corrected, see where you're going right and see where you're going wrong. It's really, again, it seems like common sense advice, but it is that simple. It's just checking and seeing, okay, am I on the right path here to passing? And, you know, of course, we have mock papers. We have 5 SCS mock papers. They're brilliant for the upcoming SCS exam. And there's great solutions there as well. So reference your answers against the solutions.
I think what Hugh said there, sorry to cut across you, Hugh.
No, you're right.
What you said about, you know, applying the theory, and especially when you get to the SCS level, you know, there's a huge amount of theoretical stuff, and sometimes students can be a bit confused about, you know, it's all kind of very abstract and seems kind of free floating in some ways, but that's one of the key things, is to try and find references, ideally in your real experience in your life, perhaps in your company or in your work, where you can kind of apply those ideas and theories and go, okay, how would this actually play out in my context or in the context that I've been familiar with? And that actually, the science of learning shows that really ingrains it in your long-term memory if you're able to do that. And if you're able to associate particular theories or models with specific distinct examples, okay, so you apply one theory in one case and one theory in another case. So that's if you're just trying to remember and retain information. But then, of course, you want to actually be able to apply it to a pre-scene like scenario as well, obviously. So that's where mock exams come in. So there might be, you know, those are 2 different approaches that you could take. But I mean, our courses do take care of a lot of that with our applied sessions. So in our EP and F applied sessions, we spend a good deal of time showing you how to apply those kinds of theories in a realistic way and model the kind of answer that you're expected to give in the SCS.
Yeah, I think, you know, both Hugh and Hugo make great points there, yeah, I mean, I'm going to labor this a little bit, but with regards to the theory, you know, always trying to think about it in the context of the pre-scene. So the theories that you identify as important, you know, the mistake I think quite a few students make is just going back to their textbook and only reviewing theory in that way. So, you know, textbooks are very dry, they're quite abstract, you know, good starting point maybe, but when it comes to the case study, it's a practical exam. It's not a theory exam. You need to use theory, but you're applying it in a real life type scenario. So it's taking the theory and always thinking about the theory through the lens of this pre-seen business, just again and again and again doing that. And Hugo said it there, that we take great pains to do that in the case study courses. So we never present a theory in a dry theoretical way. It's always, okay, this theory, here's a little reminder of what this is, and now we're going to just apply it to the case, to this particular pre-seen business. That's the best way to review theory in the context of the case study.
So we have a Q&A question coming in there from Alice.
Yeah.
So she says, hi, I just have a question relating to the elite course for the operational level for November. November case study. Will you be forwarding booking links soon? Thanks. So Thomas, I think you clicked on the answer this question live button there.
Oh.
So I don't know if you want to go ahead, but I'll just mention actually that there is an email being sent out this evening, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, there's an email on the OCS and just giving some guidance on next steps for students after they get their OCS results. And in that email, you actually will find a link to the November 2021 elite course booking, so you can actually go to via that link and book your place in November 2021 elite course for the OCS. So yeah, I don't know if the lads want to add anything to that.
Yeah, just to say that the elite courses are the most complete courses that we have. So we have 3 elite courses, one for the OCS, one for the MCS, and one for the SCS. And it is a good idea to be looking ahead to November if you're thinking of sitting that exam. And we intentionally limit the number of places on those courses, and November is always the busiest period. So if you do want to guarantee a place on that course, it's a good idea to do so now. But the elite course is very, very complete. We benchmark them against other courses in the market, and we think it is as complete a course as there is for the case study. And it comes in at a price point that is more attractive than other tuition providers can offer. To give you a high-level overview, it includes probably, I think, 22 hours of live classes. So we've got workshops, which are very, very practical, exam-focused, how to write a good answer type classes. Then we've got webinars, which are more the pre-seen analysis, EF and P applied to the pre-seen, key issues, industry analysis. There are, depending on your level, if it's OCS, there are 3 mocks included. You also get model solutions, and you get marking for all of those solutions. If you're doing the MCS or SCS, it's 5 mocks that you get with model solutions and marking for each of those 5 mocks. You also have, access to your tutor throughout the course in a number of ways. So there's a Slack group for private conversations. There's, email response within 24 hours from your tutor. You obviously meet your tutor every week for workshops, and you also have an open office hours session. So every week you have the possibility to just jump on a call if you have any doubts that you need resolved urgently with your tutor. So very, very complete. There's also a pass guarantee, and you get access to our all access membership for 3 months, which is everything at vivatuition.com. So very, very complete. Okay, so Hugo said there's an email going out about that with links to the OCS November 21 elite course. Yeah.
Sure, I should have just mentioned as well that you'll get that if you're on our mailing list. So if you're actually subscribed, just in case you're not subscribed, you can subscribe at vivatuition.com. If you follow the subscribe/login button there at the top right of the homepage, you'll be able to subscribe. If you're not already on the mailing list, you'll get all these notifications.
Yeah.
So Sanjita says, just in the chat box there, this was, I think, just from earlier, when is the Cima syllabus likely to change again? So I suppose we don't necessarily know, but they tend to change their syllabus every 5 years around that time. So the last syllabus change was in late 2019. So I don't think it's going to be immediate, but I think maybe 2 or 3 years time.
Yeah.
Some accountancy qualifications change their syllabus every year. Some, like Cima, take a little bit longer. So we don't know. We're not necessarily able to answer that question, but I don't think it'll be next year. So I suppose that's the important one, Sanjita. It won't be immediate, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, Cima, when they make any of these big syllabus changes, they do tend to warn the tuition providers well in advance. So for the last syllabus change, we were being warned a year and a half or two in advance, a year and a half. So we had time to just, adapt. So they haven't said anything. I think it would be, a couple of years yet. Probably, if it's 5 years, the last one was late 2019, it would be 2024. As Hugh said, the other accountancy bodies, I think they make, smaller changes more frequently, whereas with Cima, it's every 5 years and they make quite big changes.
So from earlier, I'm just going through some of the kind of early questions here, guys, from Vicky. So these are the non-Q&A ones. I'm waiting for MCS results next week. Okay, so just so we're all aware, the MCS results are released next week. If it's not good news, do you have any tips for staying focused to approach the resit? I'm worried I'll struggle to engage with the material having gone through it all before, if resit needed. I want to make sure I'm making the best use of my time. And that's a really good point, because if you've perhaps not done well in the exam, and I hope that's not the case, Vicky, I hope you passed the exam, but if you didn't, and you're right to prepare and right to think about what may happen if you don't at this stage, you have a lot of time, and that's a good thing in one regard, because you've lots of time to study, but also you have a lot of time, and you may end up wasting a bit of it because possibly you may procrastinate. That happens sometimes with people. If you've left too much time to study, that can happen as well. So I think the best thing to do is really just to have some form of plan in place, maybe the day you get your results. So you don't want to spend a load of time planning and then find out that you passed the exam. But the day that you find out, maybe have a plan and stick to it. So have some form of plan where you'll put in, okay, on this day I'm going to do a mock exam. On this day I'm going to go through possibly some past questions on the CIMA website and cgma.org, past papers, go through them and see, okay, how could I approach this question if it came up for trainer? Maybe this day I'm going to go through P2. These are my weak topics, the ones I didn't do well on in the exams. You'll get that feedback from CIMA. It won't be exact, but it'll show you the syllabus area. Roughly, it'll be the core activity that'll show you that you didn't do well on. And so focus your attention then on that. So even though you've done the groundwork, probably going through the pre-scene, I would still do that, quite frequently throughout your study. So again, that could be another session going through trainer, making sure you understand this, and that's what I would do. But maybe the guys have a different set of advice for you.
I think it's a very good question, Vicky. Fingers crossed that you get the pass. Let us know how you get on next Thursday. So, I completely understand it. Staying motivated in the face of a poor result that's tough. But what I would say is that, definitely try to push through and make sure you resit if you have to in August, because you've done 80% of the work already, because you've gone through the pre-scene, which is the same for May 21. So I know the temptation is probably to skip the August window, but then if you have to do it again in November, you have to start from scratch, which is even tougher. So focus on what you've actually done. If you fail, you're probably quite close. So there's only a little bit more of a push required.
Yeah.
I
mean, the thing is, at least what I kind of got from Vicky's question, or the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? The undertone of it was that, it might become a little bit tedious and boring to have to go through the whole same pre-scene document again. You're going through the same things. You've already thought about it thoroughly, and it's a bit of a drag. But I think what Thomas said there was very important. It's like, well, which would you prefer, I suppose, is starting from absolute zero, or, using the momentum that you already have.
Yeah. So
while it might not be an ideal situation, having to just, go through the same pre-scene, the same material again, you can think of it as an advantage. I think that's the mindset you just have to adopt. look at it in that light, in that positive light, and think, okay, this is great. I've done so much legwork already, and now I just need to tweak some things to get me over the line.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the keys to keeping yourself motivated.
And speaking of, so that final push, a very obvious thing to do here would be to, to review what you did the last time and to see what it was that you did not do. So it might well be the case that, you didn't do mock practice. That would be a very obvious red flag. A lot of students, they make that mistake. They'll purchase a course, they'll spend time watching the videos and things like that, but that only takes you kind of half of the way. Unless you're actually sitting the mock exams and getting exam ready in that way, then it's going to be tricky. So identify what you did wrong the last time. So if it was mock exams you didn't do, you might have done mock exams, in which case it might be a question of thinking about getting some of them marked if you didn't the last time. That can be a very high value activity. So yeah, think about what you did the last time, or didn't do rather, and try to do it this time.
See, just underneath that, Shinolo has a question, and this is a really common one. We get a lot of questions about this. Any advice on how to maximize or use the exam blueprints and Cima syllabus? So everyone, if you're not aware, basically the blueprints are the kind of guidelines or the kind of overview of the syllabus for each of the subjects, including the case study as well. And Shinolo, I believe you were talking about sitting the P3 exams. So you're talking about the objective blueprints for possibly the strategic level. They all come in at different levels. If I'm being honest with you, I would actually not rely on them too much, because any materials that you have in the form of either a textbook or materials from us are prepared in line with those anyway. So you don't necessarily have to worry too much about them. You could get bogged down in the detail. I will say that if you look at the blueprints, they're quite vague. So if you were to kind of go through each of the objectives that are inside those blueprints, the different ICANN statements, some of them are very vague. You may kind of question, okay, what's that actually related to? So I wouldn't worry too much about them, if I'm being honest with you. I think they're useful for the case studies, maybe a little bit. They just give you kind of a general idea as to what's testable in the paper. But for the objective papers, I would just rely on the materials more so than the blueprints. That would be my suggestion. Maybe the guys have different advice on that.
Not really. I think I'm the same as you, Hugh. We get these blueprints from Cima. They send them through when they were changing the syllabus. We looked at them. I think there are more user-friendly ways to engage with the material, and there are lots of videos and texts and summary notes, etc., out there from different providers, including ourselves. So there are more interesting ways to cover the content.
Cool. So there's one there from Isuru, and it's both in the Q&A and just in the chat. So I'm just reading it off the chat. But hi, nice to have you back on Ask Me Anything, guys. Okay, so that's great to hear. Thanks for that feedback. Quite useful. I'm planning to sit for the August SCS. After looking at Cima's suggested answers for past case studies, I didn't see much calculations or display of workings. So should our answers be essay type, or just like writing an email reply in a business context, or should we show calculations if required? So that's a good question. And perhaps maybe you're someone who's never sat a case study before. If that's the case, then that's a really, really, really good question, because it's not always immediately obvious. If you've gone through the solutions, I'm assuming you've probably deduced that there isn't much calculation type questions that come up, or there isn't really a very complex set of workings that you have to provide. I suppose you're right that in the sense that you're saying, is it a business type email that you have to send? I suppose that's the most accurate way of kind of framing how your answer should look. But the ideal answer structure for the SCS is to have a series of paragraphs, and each of those paragraphs has its own separate point inside it. And with calculations, you won't really be asked, and of course we can't guarantee, but from our own experience and from looking at past papers, you're never really going to get a question that says, well, calculate the equity beta of this company. Okay, it'll be more so a qualitative type question, and you may have to incorporate that theory into your answer and apply it to a company that's been given to you in advance, the pre-scene, but you won't necessarily be asked to make any complex calculations. Again, we can't guarantee that, but that's generally speaking the way it goes. So in terms of calculations, the only calculation really that I've seen being useful in the last maybe 2 or 3 settings is just recalculating the gearing to take into consideration the possible source of finance that the business is looking to raise. And that just supports your point as to whether gearing is a good idea or a bad idea. But it's not necessarily required. You're not going to get a mark just for that, unlike other accountancy bodies where you would. So that is a bit different for Cima. But again, I'm conscious I might be going on a bit. Maybe the guys have different input on that.
No, I think that's very, very complete, Hugh. We've got a question from Sanjita there on the MCS, the management case study. Which of the pillars is applied the most and least? E.g. for the OCS, it seems to be P1. You know, I haven't carried out an in-depth review of the 2019 syllabus MCS exams to see how the subjects are weighted. We did that actually with the last syllabus, so I think it's probably time that we do that again. So I'm not entirely sure, to be quite honest with you. Hugh, do you have an idea which, if one of the pillars gets more heavily represented for the MCS?
Yeah, so CIMA did a presentation a long time ago when they introduced the syllabus change in 2019, and they have this area called their Center of Excellence, and I think it's in Germany, I believe. So they do sort of research and they put together all these different syllabus changes and recommendations. And there was a presentation that showed what the different lead papers are for the different case study exams. So for the OCS, it's P1, for MCS, it's P2, and for the SCS, it's E3. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your exam will be weighted, you know, significantly more heavy in that direction. I think that's probably dangerous to kind of think like that, because you could leave yourself exposed. If you're just specializing in one subject, you could do really badly in the paper if there's lots of F2 content that comes up, or maybe lots of E2 content. But you are right. If you look at the OCS paper, it's now, you know, these days it's normally all P1 all over the place. The MCS is a bit more varied. There's a lot more of the E and sort of the more sort of theoretical elements coming in. It's not just a technical exam talking about applying theories here and there. It's a little bit more requiring you to give advice and give input. So you've kind of, if you think about the case study exams, they're supposed to replicate a real business. So you've kind of gone up, you've had a promotion to finance manager for the MCS. So you're supposed to kind of give some input and give some advice, as well as having technical knowledge from F2. So hopefully that answers your question, Sanjita. I suppose in essence it's P2, but I wouldn't just rely on P2 to pass the exam.
That's great. Okay, Sanjita, yeah, you seem to have, that's an interesting tactic. You're saying that you would sit the objective test that's most heavily weighted near the case study. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I can see why that, why you'd do that. Yeah.
I think
okay, guys, keep the questions coming. Sorry, Hugh.
No, that's just saying it's a good idea. I never thought about it like that.
Okay, guys, keep the questions coming.
Sorry if there's a siren coming through there in my microphone. I swear they're not coming from me.
I just see as well, there's a comment there from Shinolo. Thanks, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it, and Vicky as well. So lots of nice feedback.
So now is a good time to mention, I think, that for the August window, we are running live webinars for all 3 levels, for the OCS, MCS, SCS. So, you know, the standard courses, standard OCS, MCS, and SCS courses have 7 live webinar sessions. The OCS has already kicked off. The MCS is kicking off this Saturday, and the SCS the following week. So, you know, for those of you who are all access members, for example, you've, you know, access to all of those webinars. We have sent out the links already, so you can register for those. Definitely worth thinking about for the August exams. So Sanjita says, I seem to always be asking loads of questions. Thank you. You all have been excellent. Well, yeah, that's the right way to, fire away. Keep them coming, Sanjita, because it's a little bit quiet today. But yeah, very good questions. Very good questions. Here we go. Isuru.
Okay, will I go through this one or?
I shall read it out, yeah.
Yeah.
So Isuru says, adding to my previous question, if an SCS question comes related to hedging, what kind of qualitative answers would Cima possibly expect? Won't there be any requirement for any heavy hedging calculation? Hugh, if you want to follow up on that one.
Well done, Hugo.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Like a hot potato, just pass it off. Hugo is our E expert, not necessarily our F expert, though.
I'll pass that one off.
Okay, so Sarah, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, in the past, what Cima have normally done is if they've asked, are there any currency risks, or what are the currency risks of partaking in a certain decision? So maybe they might be, just a theoretical scenario. This is not necessarily going to be tested in your paper or anything like that. But say, for example, with the upcoming SCS, Airfield, it's an airport business. But if they acquire a business in a different country, what are the currency risks and how would they manage those currency risks? So you could have internal or external hedging. Possibly the question may even just ask for external hedging. And so in that case, Asira, you're being asked to describe the hedging technique. And in the past, actually, how this has come up, I think in 2 case settings before, there was a supplier, and the supplier insisted on being invoiced in a different currency. And so you had to come up with some hedging strategies that were appropriate for that particular supplier. They were invoicing in sort of strange cycles, I think once every 6 months or something like that. So some hedging techniques are appropriate, some are not. And what you're really asked to do is explain the technique, how it would apply in that particular context. And are you asked to make any complex calculations? Very often, no. Again, we can't say with 100% certainty what the exam will say or what it'll ask you to do, but it can be 95% certain that they're not going to ask you, for example, what's the effective rate of hedging in this case? And if you think about the case study exam, it supports having well-structured paragraphs rather than having just one headline figure and getting a mark for that. That's not how the papers are corrected. So in terms of hedging, will there be any requirement for heavy calculations? I would suggest likely not the case. Okay, so almost certain not the case. But it is a good idea to know them anyways, because if you know the calculations, then when you go into your exam, you'll be able to explain it well. Okay, so don't shy away from the calculations. And when you're going through your study, it is good to kind of know them, because then you can talk about them, you can talk through them. Yeah. Which is sort of the more qualitative end of it.
Yeah. I think, it's a very common question students ask about, in the case study, will I be expected to do calculations? It's more the case that Cima will present you with the calculations done already. So you might get a table of figures to interpret, or ratios or something like that. Now you would need to be able to understand what they mean, to comment sensibly on them, and also to, spot potential errors or false assumptions. So you might get an email from a non-finance person who has, made some errors with the calculations they're sending you, or they've assumed the wrong things, and you would be expected then to flag that up. So Elizabeth asks about all access membership, and I think we've a question from Vicky, and they're similar questions. So Elizabeth says, how do we renew our all access membership? I can't remember when I joined. Do you send reminders? And Vicky asks something similar. I have all access. Do you get an email reminder to let you know when you need to renew the subscription? So yes, you should get an email reminder when your subscription is coming to an end, and even when it's just passed. If you forget to renew, or we send out an email. So I'll check both of your cases after the call to see that it was the case that you received that email, but Um, um, if you have not, I will send that email to you. Okay. And I admire your dedication, Elizabeth, on the bus, tuning into the webinar. So the connection's not stable, but here you are anyway. Very well done.
I should say as well, actually, just on that point there from Vicky and Elizabeth, that we are actually we're in the process of working on some updates to the website, to the student area. And so we're going to make it so that it's more transparent to students, basically what the status of their product or of their membership is. Yeah. So that'll allow you then to more easily keep track of it as well. So we're working on that in the background as well.
Yes, taking longer than we expected, but that's basically that's the same for everything in life. It takes twice as long as you think, and it's half as good as you imagine it will be. It's going to be good. Don't worry about that. Yeah, we're working on some pretty good changes for the website. Okay, so Sanjita says, is there a discount if you renew? What I would say, Sanjita, is that the All Access membership is already very, very competitively priced. So it's £299 for 1 year of access to everything. It's about 1,000 hours of Cima study content, which we're not aware of an offer that gives as much for that kind of price point. Okay, so with this All Access subscription, there are some tuition providers who offer a subscription service. With our subscription service, you get all of the case study mock exams included, for example. And you get basically everything included. You get, probably 150 hours of video content across case study and objective tests. You get BPP texts for each of the objective tests. You get about 7,000 objective test questions. We're always updating the content. So for every case study window, we're changing the content, changing the mock exams. So it's very, very complete. And the price point is already very, very, very competitive. Okay, so I think we've, oh no, that one was answered.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys. Any more questions? So we'll give it a couple of more minutes, and if there are no more questions, then we'll finish up the webinar. But we're around. We've blocked out an hour, so there's 22 minutes left. If there's a flurry of questions now, we'll get through them. So a lot of people asking about E3, F3, P3 tutorials. When will you do these, please? Elizabeth asks that question. So the first thing to say, Elizabeth, you're probably aware that with All Access, you unlock video courses for all of those subjects. So we've got some very good video courses for each of those subjects. So you can access those. You can access the questions and BPP texts that are included with All Access. In terms of live classes or live courses, there's no plan to do full live courses for those 3 subjects. We will probably do some hotspot webinars in the coming months for each of those subjects. So keep an eye on your email. So if you're subscribed or if you're an All Access member, you would be the first to know. Whenever we do hotspot webinars, which is where we tackle a particularly tricky syllabus topic, we send the registration links to our All Access members. So Sanjita says, do you put pass rate stats on all of the elite courses? So, sometimes we get this question from students about, what are our pass rates? And I don't think any tuition provider can accurately answer that question, because there's now a lot of sensitivity around data protection. So there are strict GDPR rules that Cima, for example, needs to follow, and indeed Viva Financial Tuition needs to follow, and all tuition providers need to follow. So, Cima has that information. They have the pass rates for all of the students, but they cannot share that with tuition providers. Okay, they cannot come and tell us, what each of our students scored. Having said that, Cima is allowed to give us a high-level overview without mentioning names, etc. And they run an award each year called the Global Pass Rate Award, where tuition providers whose students have exceeded the average pass rates that Cima has, tuition providers who do that, they get a stamp of approval from Cima. Basically, they get a Global Pass Rate Award. Now, only 6 tuition providers actually got that last year. And I'm sure you're aware of the names of, the ones that won the award. There were 6: Kaplan, BPP, obviously very, very big players, HTFT Partnership, First Intuition, Wisdom, and Viva Financial Tuition. So we were very, very proud to join that list, because, without naming names, if you go and, visit the websites of a number of those tuition providers, you will see, they offer some very good courses, but the prices are much, much higher than Viva Financial Tuition. So whereas a typical course might be priced at something like £1,000 with one of those tuition providers, Viva is offering access to everything on the website for £299 for a year. It's, a remarkable difference. Even our elite courses, which are far more involved and offer, marking services and very personalized tuition, are priced at £699 instead of £1,000 or £1,400, which is typically what you would find in the market. So that's what we can say. We can say that, we have that very prestigious award from Cima. So we know that we are exceeding the average pass rates, and not many tuition providers are doing that. Okay, so Elizabeth says, do we have to send areas of concern?
Referring to the hotspots, I suppose.
Yeah, Elizabeth, so absolutely, if there is a particular area for any of those subjects you just mentioned that you find particularly difficult and you think it would make a good hotspot webinar, please send us your ideas. We're always interested in hearing what students are having difficulty with. And there's a good chance that then in a few months' time, we would turn that into a webinar session.
So Nada sends in the next question saying, for the SCS exam, do you know if the suggested solutions, and there's a clarification underneath for the Cima suggested solutions, are the model to follow? Yeah, I suppose they are. Cima is the accountancy body and they're putting together these solutions. So a lot of people are critical of the solutions. Some people think they're overly simplistic. Some people think they're too short. But, in general, they're fine. I don't think there's anything majorly wrong with them. I think they're a good kind of structure in there as well to follow, that nice paragraph structure. That's what the examiner has said that they like to see across all 3 levels, OCS, MCS, and SCS. So the paragraph having each paragraph with a different point being made in it. So that's what Cima likes to see. They don't like to see bullet points. So yeah, I think the SCS suggested solutions are quite good. They're not the only solutions that you can look at. We have solutions for our mock papers as well that are very good, and they'll look a bit similar in terms of the structure. There might be a bit more writing in ours than there is in the Cima suggested solutions, but just to be aware, and you'll probably know this, that the suggested solutions are just guidelines. And at the very top of the Cima website, it actually says that there could have been other points that would have been given marks, given merit, that may not be in those solutions. So they're not the only solutions you can give.
Yeah. So there's a question there from Sanjita. It says, can we talk about the hotspots? How it's incorporated into the all access offer? When do they take place? Is it available to existing members? Yes. So we have run a number of hotspot webinars. So, you know, all in all, probably in 2021, we will be running, or we have run, the total for the end of the year will be about 100 webinars. That's including case study sessions and hotspot webinars. So that's where we take a tricky syllabus area from one of the objective tests typically and do a 1-hour session. So we've already done a number of those earlier on in the year, especially F1, F2. We did quite a few of those. We did a couple of E subject. We did a few E1, I think, topics too, and E2, I think. So if you're an all access member, you receive emails with those links. So if you've just joined as an all access member, for example, you'll be receiving emails to notify you when those sessions take place.
And those sessions will also be added permanently to the website afterwards. So they'll be taking place live, and then they'll be put up on the actual in the course area as well. You'll be able to access it.
Okay. So anything else? Nope. Okay. So some good questions today, guys. Many thanks for your effort to get here. Particularly impressed, as I said, with Elizabeth. That's dedication. So if there are no more last minute questions, then we might tie things up. Thanks again for taking the time to attend. Keep an eye on your emails. We try to send out emails with you know, that have something useful for you, whether it's a webinar or a series of webinars coming up, or a you know, an article or something like that, or a sale. You know, so keep an eye on your emails, and we'll do the next AMA, I think, in 1 month. So we'll run these typically every month. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
All right, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.